history of modern Germany is summarized as being three reichs because it evolved out of three empires. But did you know that there is a significant connection between Germany and Rome? Historians say that Germanic clans played a major role in dismantling the empire, but they fail to mention that they are also a continuation of the old Roman Empire. So we will continue our discussion about the fourth beast, its religion, and its people. As covered in the last session, Germanic tribes believe that their race is superior to others. Why are they so emphatic about racial superiority? Is it because of their bloodline?
You know, I'm proud to have that German blood. There's no question about it. Great stuff.
So what makes German blood so great? The paternal bloodline of Germanic races points back to the giants and the Neanderthal. Is that bloodline supposed to be superior to the Adamic bloodline? I think not. But this idea of a superior Nordic race was a linchpin of Nazi ideology. What we need to understand is that the direction in which we point reveals the direction in which we want to go. Signs and symbols can express direct meaning when you examine behaviors. It's our job to pay attention, discern the times, and see what they are pointing to. They are beginning to point back to their paternal ancestors. If you didn't listen to the message this past week on the fallen and their descendants, I really encourage you to listen to that message. You need to have an understanding about the ancient bloodlines. I'll leave a link in the description for those who want to hear it. So let's get into this, and we'll begin by talking about the meaning of the Third Reich. This comes from World Atlas. It says in Germany, Third Reich means the Third Empire or the Third Realm. The Nazi government was basically the third in a row. The First Reich was the medieval Holy Roman Empire, which existed between 806 and 1806. The Second Reich was composed of the German Empire and its regime, which lasted between 1871 and 1918. The third was Hitler's Nazi Germany, lasting from 1933 to 1945. Now, according to New World Encyclopedia, the Holy Roman Empire was a conscious attempt to resurrect the Western Roman Empire. And when we say Holy Roman Empire, again, we're talking about the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation. As discussed before, Rome did not end. It evolved into something else. The Holy Roman Empire was the first of the three Reichs in German history. So let's look at this information from World History EDU to learn about the Reichs. It says the concept of the Third Reich is deeply interwoven with the historical narrative of Germany, as it represents the Nazi vision of their regime as a successor to two previous empires in German history. It says the First Reich, or the Holy Roman Empire, began in 962 AD when Otto I was crowned emperor by Pope John XII. This coronation marked the formal establishment of an entity that spanned much of Central Europe, parts of France and Italy, and various other territories across the continent. The empire's foundation was based on the broader Carolingian Empire, which itself followed the legacy of the ancient Roman Empire. Now it goes on to talk about the Second Reich. It says the Second Reich began with the unification of Germany under Prussian leadership in 1871, following the Franco-Prussian War. Otto von Bismarck, the Prussian chancellor, masterminded the unification through diplomatic genius and military might, culminating in the proclamation of the German Empire in the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles. So as you see, they continue the legacy of Rome. Rome didn't end, it just transformed into something else. Here in this Thought Co article entitled The Other Reichs, the First and Second Before Hitler's Third, it's clarifying that the German word Reich simply means empire, although it can also be translated as government. It says in 1930s Germany, the Nazi Party identified their rule as a Third Reich or Third Empire, and in doing so, gave English speakers around the world a wholly negative connotation of the word. But this is saying that the concept and use of Third Reichs is not a solely Nazi idea, but a common component of German historiography. So the author goes on to talk about this concept being a bit complicated. He says, when using the standard definition of the term, the Holy Roman Kaiserreich and Nazi states were certainly Reichs, and you can see how they might have been tied together in the minds of the 1930s Germans, from Charlemagne to the Kaiser to Hitler. He says, but you'd be right to also ask, how connected were they really? It says, indeed, the phrase three Reichs refers to something more than simply three empires. Specifically, it refers to the concept of three empires of German history. It says this might not seem a great distinction, but it's a vital one when it comes to our understanding of modern Germany and what happened before, and as that nation evolved. Now it goes on to tell us that the history of modern Germany is often summarized as being three Reichs or empires and three democracies. It says this is broadly correct, as modern Germany did indeed evolve out of a series of three empires. Holy Roman Empire was the imperial title, and we have to wonder why they felt a need to add the word holy. This article from Holy Roman Empire Association says the term sacrum, or holy in the sense of consecrated, in connection with the medieval Roman Empire was used from 1157 under Frederick I. So it says the term was added to reflect Frederick's ambition to dominate Italy and the papacy. Before 1157, the realm was merely referred to as the Roman Empire. In a decree following the 1512 Diet of Cologne, the name was officially changed to Holy Roman Empire of the German nation. Now it says the Holy Roman Empire was named after the Roman Empire and was considered its continuation. This is based in the medieval concept of translatio imperii. The French Enlightenment writer Voltaire remarked sardonically, this agglomeration, which was called and which still calls itself the Holy Roman Empire, was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. Now let's read some excerpts from this national interest article about the real thousand-year Reich. This says, understanding the history of the Holy Roman Empire explains how much of the European continent developed between the early Middle Ages and the 19th century, and reveals important aspects which have become obscured by the more familiar story of European history as that of separate nation states. Moreover, he states the empire lasted well over twice as long as Imperial Rome itself. The author concludes by saying that the empire's history is not merely part of numerous distinct national histories, but lies at the heart of the continent's general development. Do you see why it's vitally important for us to understand the legacy that was passed on? They didn't erase the foundations of Rome, they added to it. So we have to really understand the significance of them seeing themselves as a holy Roman Empire. It goes on to tell us that the saga of the Holy Roman Empire begins and ends with the coronation of two extraordinary men, Charlemagne and Napoleon. Charlemagne was a Frankish warrior king who could neither read nor write, but he surrounded himself with learned churchmen and was able to speak several languages. He dreamed of uniting and expanding Christian Europe under a central monarchy, a successor state to the Roman Empire. So what was the ultimate goal? It was to become the protector of the Mother Church. Let that sink in. They would become the protector of the church. This is implying that they were a people wholly committed to the Catholic Church and the religion of Christianity. Let's see how that played out. I'm going to share some excerpts from this Ancient Origins article entitled From Pagan Roots to Protestant Reforms, A Religious History of Germany. So it says, as of today, Christianity is the most dominant religion in Germany, with a high rate of atheism in the East. This, however, has not always been the case, as there have been notably other religions and theological expressions practiced throughout Germany's history, such as Norse paganism, the Protestant catechism, and all the controversies that followed. All of these, in total, have contributed to the modern-day German cultural hegemony. It says the first of these religions is German paganism, which dates from the Bronze Age. Paganism was a polytheistic religion worshiping more than one god, most notably, in this case, the gods Odin, Thor, and Balder being but a few examples. It goes on to say pagan practices included, listen, ritual sacrifice, large feasts, and bloody traditions in combat, which would lead to many embellished stories and folklore, including their beliefs in elves, dwarfs, goblins, and giants, all of which contributed to the early German imagination. Now I want to share some excerpts from another Ancient Origins article entitled Return of the Ancient Gods, the Resurgence of Paganism. It says, over the past 2 centuries, Europe has become increasingly secular. Scholars, in fact, no longer talk of the Christian West when they speak of modern Europe and North America, but of the secular West. There is, however, evidence of a spiritual revival stirring on the continent where God is supposedly dead. It says old traditions predating the appearance of the Jewish carpenter turned Messiah are beginning to re-emerge. Since the 19th century, there has been an increasing interest in ancient pre-Christian European religions, such as ancient Greek, Germanic, Celtic, and Slavic paganism. This stems from an increasing interest in spirituality in Europe, specifically a spirituality in touch with European heritage and ethnic roots, in a similar manner to indigenous religions of Native Americans and Aboriginal Australians. Now listen to what this says. It says in Iceland, the Norse gods are making a particularly strong comeback, and Nordic paganism is now Iceland's fastest growing religion. In fact, they will soon complete the first temple to Thor and Odin to exist in Iceland in over 1,000 years. This says one of the largest movements currently, which can be either syncretic or reconstructionist, is the revival of Germanic paganism or heathenry. Modern Germanic pagans, or heathens as they prefer to call themselves, worship the old Germanic gods, especially Thor and Odin, as well as Germanic nature spirits such as elves and trolls. Germanic heathens appear to have three different approaches to proselytizing and practicing their religion. So what's happening here? They are returning to their roots. I'm going to share some excerpts from this book called Germanic Origins, A Study in Primitive Culture. It was written by Francis B. Gamir, PhD. This book was written in 1892. It says, monotheism as we understand it was unknown to the Germans, but they had the usual tendency towards henotheism, the worship of one favorite god. Henotheism refers to religious belief systems that accept the existence of many gods, but worship one deity as supreme. In contrast, monotheism accepts no other god. So in early Scandinavia, Thor was their favorite deity. It says, certainly they do not express our modern notion of God. As for the All-Father of Scandinavian mythology, we may even exclude the very probable Christian influence and still find ample explanation in the phrases of ancestor worship. It says, with the introduction of Christianity, the East became the cardinal point of prayer, and the North, as we might expect, was banned as unlucky and a place of devils. So the author is asking the question, who were then the dwellers of that cold Germanic Olympus? So let's just add to that for just a minute. Have you been wondering why there are so many movies about Thor these days? Well, he was their favorite deity. They are pointing back to their beginnings. So let's dig a little deeper into that and then go back to the article. This information comes from History Cooperative. It's talking about Woden and Thor. So Woden was the chief god of the Germanic religion. He was associated with wisdom, poetry, war, kingship, and the runic alphabet. It says Woden was one of the most widely worshipped Germanic deities, and it sounds a lot like Odin, and they are the same deity. It says Woden was the lead god of Germanic paganism featured in Anglo-Saxon pre-Christian religions and many Scandinavian sources under the alternative Odin. Now Thor was known as Thuneyr, a god of thunder. He was associated with lightning, thunder, fertility, storms, and strength. Thuneyr, or Thor, was the guardian of mankind. Now, scholars identify Thuneyr with the Norse god Thor. They're one and the same, with both being all about strength and thunderstorms. Now, it says gods like Odin and Thor were central to Germanic paganism, while the father-son duo were all the rage in the Viking Age. They appeared to be persistent throughout early medieval sources. That's interesting. Now pay close attention here. It says some definite evidence on this point seems to meet us in the names given to our days of the week. The Germans were still of heathen faith when they took the names of these days from Rome and translated them into terms of their own mythology. The week of 7 days is naturally given by the changes of the moon, its so-called quarters. But we seem to have traces of a week made up of 5 days only. Of the individual days, Sunday and Monday are obvious translations, but Tuesday, Dies Martis, is credibly traced to the Germanic god Tius. Wednesday, Dies Mercury, has the stamp of Woden plain to see, and Old Thor, our Saxon Thunor, is as evident in the name of Thursday, Dies Jovis. Frigdag is good Anglo-Saxon for Duus Veneris. Saturday is Anglo-Saxon Sateris Deig, but also Saturnus Deig, evident translation of Duus Saturni. Are you getting this? Why did they begin calling the days of the week by the names of their gods? And even if they didn't know better initially, after they became Christians, why didn't they change it? It's hidden in plain sight, folks. Continuing, it says the chief god of the Germans when the Romans came in contact with them seems to have been Woden. This is the English form of the name, although some of our early homilies, evidently under Danish influence, call him Othon or Othin. The meaning of the name is not certain. Some connect it with the Old English wood, or enraged, furious. Some with the notion of wandering, with evident application to the Scandinavian myths which tell about Odin's travels and disguises, and others again see in the name a reflection of the god's intellectual qualities. Certain, however, is the fact that Woden is the wind god, the deity of heaven in the literal sense, the prince of the powers of the air. It says, in the first place, it is of great significance that we find this god in the genealogy of Anglo-Saxon kings. He is ancestor of the monarchs of Kent, Essex, East Anglia, Mercia, Deira, Bernicia, Wessex, and the Lindisfarne. Bedes speak of Hennis and Horsa as descendants of Woden. Names of places in England and elsewhere bear the same testimony, and not only places but animals and plants as well. The annalists are apt to take Woden as a king who afterwards was deified. Woden, says one, whom the Angles worship as chief god and from whom they derive their origin, was a mortal man, and king of the Saxons, and father of many races. The explanation of the supremacy of Woden in the later heathen times lies in his double attribute of intellectual skill. He is said to have invented runes and love of war. Now that's interesting. It goes on to say the constant warfare of these times made Othinus Armapotens easily the central figure. Here too he seems to have taken the place of Tius, the older Mars. Why are they trying to get to Mars? It says, to Odin, the Scandinavians ascribed the invention of their mode of attack in battle, the wedge-shaped column, really of far greater antiquity than Germanic warriors ever knew, and known to these Norsemen as the boar's head. Now listen to how Tacitus describes their manner of worship. It says, at a specified time, representatives of all the clans of this race assemble in a forest, which is sanctified by ancestral auguries and immemorial fear, formally offer up a human sacrifice and celebrate their awful and barbaric rites. A peculiar reverence attaches to this grove. Can we just say Bohemian Grove? No one enters it unless bound with fetters in order to show his own humble case and the power of the divinity. And if he chances to fall, he is not allowed to rise and stand up. Prone as he is, he must roll along the ground. The whole superstition implies that in this grove is the origin of the race. Here lives the deity who rules them all, while all the rest are but subject and tributary. Now it goes on to say, the grove of Netherus is another example, and even the temple at Uppsala, described by Adam of Bremen, seems to have been originally a grove. Moreover, we know that there were places of sacrifice in these primitive temples. So it says the simple forest fashion, however, seems hardly to have required an altar, and in its early simplicity Germanic worship was doubtless content to hang the victim, or parts of it, directly upon the sacred tree itself. Around this sacred tree, with its fresh hung offering, marched or danced the worshippers, singing as they moved, and dedicating their gift to the local deity. It says Mullenhoff refers to a dialogue of Gregory the Great, where the heathens are described as running in this fashion about a goat sacrificed to the devil, with dedication of song and dance. So what are we looking at here? These are images of pictures from Bohemian Grove. The Bohemian Grove is a restricted 2,700-acre piece of property in California. It was founded in 1878, and it belongs to a private, quote-unquote, gentleman's club. In July each year, some of the most prominent men in the world go there. As you can see, Ronald Reagan was there. We have to look at the signs, symbols, and behavior to understand what they are pointing to. This article from the Historian's Magazine is entitled Continuation of the Romans. It says, what is a Roman? In all forms of society, people have constantly undergone a myriad of changes in their way of life. Ambitions, goals, objectives, and values alter between generations. It is only natural for change to occur when civilizations evolve from their previous form. The current period in our history has the ability to look towards the past and view all the events to gain a better understanding of how our civilizations came into existence and how they can still transform. As for the European continent, there is undoubtedly no argument for how important and prominent the role the Roman Empire held in its existence. The Roman Empire's destiny, influence, and legacy changed Europe's history drastically, lasting for almost 2,000 years. It says the term Roman evolved throughout the entirety of the empire's existence. It started as a title to describe ethnic Latin-speaking communities in Italia or Italy. As the empire grew in territory, the title of Roman ultimately changed with the acceptance of other cultural communities to gradually shift anew with Roman qualities. The definition of Roman varied between different communities and also had different ideas and concepts to what it meant. There were communities that considered ethnicity, geography, and language to be the defining factors of being Roman, while other communities considered citizenship and culture as more important. During the height of the Roman Empire in 117 CE, over time, Roman identity soon transformed into a collective identity since the empire had its presence in different regional and ethnic communities, redefining the term Roman. So for those who say Neanderthals are extinct, think again. You're still looking at them. Just like the Roman Empire, they didn't go anywhere. They evolved. They transformed themselves into something else. Now let's remember what the passage says from Daniel's vision. And this was the interpretation here in Daniel 7:23-24 about the fourth beast. It says, "Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth, which shall be diverse from all kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and shall tread it down, and break it in pieces. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall rise after them, and he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue 3 kings." Notice that the fourth beast is the fourth kingdom. No other Gentile kingdom will come after that. The next kingdom will be the Most High's kingdom. Also, don't overlook the fact that the 10 horns, which are 10 kings, come out of this fourth kingdom, Rome. And then it says, another shall arise after them. Not another empire, but another horn, referring to another king. Things that we see happening in the last days that are contrary to the Most High's laws, statutes, and commandments are all tied to this fourth beast. It may have a different name, and the people may be using different names and not look exactly the same, but they are the embodiment of the fourth beast. At the time, no one would have pointed to Alexander the Greek and identified him as a beast. Well, the prophets of the Most High would have. But in hindsight, we can look at the signs, the symbols, and the behavior to know that his kingdom represented the belly and thighs of bronze. So we have our hope in Yah's word as we focus on his kingdom that is to come, and his will that will be done in heaven and on earth. So look up Israel. Your redemption draweth nigh. If this message has been a blessing to you, please hit the like and share it. You're also welcome to subscribe if you have not already done so. We normally upload messages on Sunday mornings at 8:30 a.m. Yah willing. Join me next time.